January 2012 Radnor Township Shade Tree Commission meeting, and Happy New Year to one and all. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight, the first being Agnes Irwin School. If you could please present your plan and identify yourself.
Hello, I am Kevin McCullough. I'm the Director of Finance and Facilities with the school. And we have Joe Hanna from Chambers Associates, our site engineer, along with us as well, to talk to you tonight about what the school would like to accomplish in the way of modular educational units on the commons or greens between the lower school and upper school portions of the campus. Would you like me to continue from here with a description of? I guess this doesn't swing.
If you could bend the mic to kind of go with you. Thank you.
That's great, still attached. What I am showing you in the center area here is the greens area. It's about 125 by 200 feet all in. There is an alumni walkway that crosses that and connects our lower school campus with our middle and upper school campus. There is a small portion of the greens area beneath that walkway that is within the parking drive. And the school is proposing to install for the period of construction that is next year, but we would like to install these modular units over the course of the summer in anticipation of the September through June academic year, approximately 2,700 square foot facility that will house our student fitness center on this side, a lower school music room or instructional area on this side, and a smaller adjoining area for students and staff. And what we are showing here is connectivity from this area to the walkway via stairs and ramps, and to the parking areas on both sides separately with walkways, and a small stair and rampway connecting to parking and to the existing Arts and Science Center in the area you see here. This is the area where we have 4 existing trees. There are 2 plum. There is 1 autumnalis cherry, and there is additionally an aristocrat pear. So what we're showing here is tree protection in the way of continuous fencing around those trees. The area between the tree, the autumnalis cherry trunk, and the edge of the building structure is about 10 feet, is it not? So the foundation system, although that is in a to-be-determined period at this point, has been described to us by one of the providers, and the one who's likely going to be the provider of that, to be an ABS pad ground surface with piers supporting the units themselves, so there's minimum compression of the turf areas there.
What is the caliber of that autumnalis?
I would say it's probably about 6.5 or 7 inches.
Okay, thanks.
The largest of the trees there is the aristocrat pear. I have photos of them if you'd like to see them.
And it shows the tree protection fence coming up almost to where the new temporary building will be, and because of the way the building is being situated, there'll be no digging. That works then. Is that correct? No, because once the tree protection fence is up, you can't do anything inside that area.
Our understanding is, as I mentioned about the foundation, that there wouldn't be any required digging. If there was, it would obviously need to take place after the fencing went up and on the other side of it.
Okay.
No excavation for your footers for your steps or the ramp?
At this point, that is, we do not have a plan for that would show that. There may be, I would think if there is, it would probably be something in the way of a small sonotube to hold the post and rail portion of it. As you can probably see, the stair and ramp area that is closest to the trees is also contiguous, or it follows the existing line of the parking space that's already in place. So it would be on the other side of that.
Okay, everybody in accord with their plan? Very good, thank you, and
Thank you very
good
much.
luck. The second item on the agenda is 237 East Lancaster, Rite Aid.
Good evening. My name is Don Petros. I'm an attorney representing Rite Aid. With me this evening are Richard Bradley, who is the Regional Construction Manager, and Rhett Chiliberti of Bowler Engineering. Rhett is the project engineer. I'm going to ask Rhett to review the plan with you. And we were here, I guess, back in March and then again in August, August 24th. So I'll have Rhett review the existing conditions and what's proposed.
The site is located at Lancaster Avenue and Aberdeen Road, and I don't have a colored version of what was surveyed. I'm sure you're familiar with the site, but just quickly, the Taco Bell's on the east side, Lancaster Avenue's on the bottom of the page.
Would you just move the microphone so you're talking closer
Sure.
to it? Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. Lancaster Avenue's at the bottom of the page, Taco Bell's on the east side of the property. The vacant Blockbuster is on the west side of the property. There's approximately 12 trees within the property today, scattered throughout. And we're going to completely demolish the site, so all of the trees that are out there will be removed. And the plan beneath here is the proposed landscape plan. We are providing a total of 31 trees on the property. Pretty evident around the property perimeter, street trees, and then trees internal to the parking lot per the township requirements. There was a review letter, or at least a summary of the Shade Tree Commission meeting on August 24th. and I just will briefly go through to our responses to those comments. Define which trees are being removed. On our plans that we resubmitted back to the township, we identified each tree to be removed on the demolition plan. And I could just briefly show you with the X's. This is the demolition plan. So we call that out on each tree. The next comment said, please include formula and species being planted. So on the landscape plan, we have a landscape schedule which shows the various trees that we're proposing. They range from red maple, white oak, willow oak, and village green zelkova. The next comment, show limit of disturbance and tree protection fence in the area of the 14-inch white oak. The 14-inch white oak is located on the adjacent property to the north. We've been talking with the neighbor throughout this process. So we typically provide the limited disturbance and tree protection fence on our soil erosion and sediment control plan, and that was also provided within our last submission. And it's probably difficult to see on the screen, but we do have the tree protection fence shown, and the dashed line represents the limit of disturbance.
What sheet is that you just showed?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's sheet number 6. So you'll see at the top there's a call out of the tree protection fence. Offset from the property line. There's a couple of X's that run parallel with the property line.
And is there a wall there? It was between the property and that white oak or what, or that?
There is no wall.
No wall.
It's just a
Okay.
property line. There's some hedges there right now. During construction, ideally what we'll do is put it on the tree protection fence on the property line. We're showing it offset from the property line right now, just so graphically you can see that.
And so how far will that be from the trunk?
Two feet.
In what condition are those trees? Are they relatively healthy? What's the neighbor's disposition?
They are relatively healthy. And Rich, we've go ahead.
We can help on the neighbor's disposition. She's appeared at a couple of public meetings, planning commission meeting, and what she said was that they were accidental trees and she has no particular attachment to them whatsoever. That's what she reported at a planning commission meeting.
And I'm sorry, could you refresh me on what the species are of those trees?
On the neighbor's property? Sure. The one on the far east side is an oak tree. They're both oak tree. This one's 14 inches, the one to the west is 11 inches caliper.
Okay. Sue, do we have that in writing from the neighbor that?
And actually, I'm more concerned about the trees as a resident of the township as opposed to what the owner of that property says. So having the tree protection fence be 2 feet from the trunk is not going to protect those trees. So that and in the formula that you've done for the replacement of trees being removed, is that included as if those true trees were being removed?
No.
And is there any way to change the plan so you would not have to so you could have the tree protection fence further from those trees?
We do have an opportunity to place the fence further away.
Bill, what would be your recommendation for the tree protection fence? It should be at minimal what, in your expertise?
A traditional standard would be in the drip, outside of the drip line. Yeah.
Just go back to what is our level of disturbance going to be in that particular area of the demolition and then the reconstruction? What's going on? What is presently there is just blacktop? Is that what it is?
It's blacktop right now.
Okay.
About 1.5 feet from that tree. So you have curb and blacktop right there.
There's presently a curb there.
1.5 feet. Yes.
From the trunk of the tree?
It's 1.5 from the property line. I'd say it's 3.5 from the tree, from the trunk line.
Okay. So you're proposing to remove the curb and the blacktop and then put in a new curb and blacktop?
We're actually going to increase the green buffer there by about 1.5 feet. So if you're right now for 3.5 feet from the tree right now, the blacktop's 3.5 feet, will now be 5 feet. So we're increasing the buffer and then adding blacktop and curb.
So you're taking out the existing?
Correct.
And then backfilling with soil 1.5 feet, giving 1.5 feet more soil to the root system?
1.5 feet more soil, that's correct.
And would that be beyond the drip line at that point with your new configuration, new construction?
No, it's all within the drip line.
With your proposed new macadam blacktop and curbing, it still would be within the drip line, right?
Correct. It's within the drip line today, and proposed we would maintain that scenario.
So I think Jim raises a good question. My concern would be the disturbance that would be done in the removal of the blacktop, because I'm assuming that there probably are roots under the existing macadam. I think Jim's point is that it would definitely be good for the tree to have more soil above it, but I'm concerned about how much damage there would be done to the roots in that construction process.
Right, exactly. That's going to be the key, is when this present material is being removed, that you don't do undue damage to the root system that is currently underneath of what you're trying to remove. If care can be taken when you're removing that material, the chances of survival of the tree are going to be better than just, you're going to encounter roots because there are going to be roots underneath that blacktop and that curb. So when it's being removed, some care has to be taken, or an arborist talked to, so that you don't do undue damage to the tree while you're trying to help
Okay.
it.
Okay.
You know, so
We can include that in our sequence and in our kickoff at construction, and if you look at the existing elevation out there versus the proposed, they're very close. So we're not doing a significant amount of earth moving right there. It's generally taking off the old black top, raising it, the elevation a couple inches, and then putting back the new. But we can certainly include that in our sequence and kick off to make sure that that's specified, taken care of.
And there's no chance to increase that dimension that you're adding, there's no chance to increase that at all, is there? Because
No.
of the egress to the parking lot, or there's no chance to make that another foot or whatever else you could do there?
Unfortunately, no. That's one of the things we like to look at the beginning of the process, and it's just the way the circulation is and how tight the site is to begin with. It was difficult to provide the buffer that we have right now. So,
Would it be safe to say that you could extend that proposed tree protection as far out as possible, and then
Sure.
when you were done with your new curbing, extend it out to that curb?
yes, yeah, we can extend it out.
So during the process of construction, nothing else is going to be put on top of that soil that you've added?
Yes, we can do that. The change in elevation is extremely minor, so we might be, Rich, we probably could sequence that area and fence it off, and just, that could be the last thing that we do.
Okay, I would suggest, again, that we make sure we have a statement in writing from that neighbor. And I would also recommend that funds be put in escrow such that if these trees don't survive what you're suggesting, that those funds go into the general tree account with the township, or you find other places on the particular property to make compensatory planting, which I think you may have some difficulty in doing. Everybody okay with that? All righty, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Would you accept public comment?
Sure. We'll keep it brief, please.
I'm Jim Schneller. I live in Brinfield, which is a long block away from the location, but I walk it daily or almost daily and shop in the same block frequently, et cetera. I'm not sure where the waiver came up for trees along the Cromer Avenue side, but I'd like to ask you, before you give an approval to this, that you reconsider the waiver that's been given to trees on the Cromer Avenue side. I don't think anyone wants Cromer Avenue to stay a bald location. If this isn't a permanent improvement or a long-time improvement on Cromer's intended in the Wayne plan, master plan, to become a equally attractive street as North Wayne. Cromer is not intended to be an alley, and applicant is really attempting to maintain an alley-type character. In fact, I'm not certain, but I think they were granted waivers of certain architectural features on this side of the building. What better way to try to keep Wayne attractive, especially to people traveling west to east on the Pike, to have a couple of ornamentals at least, or one or two hardwoods that maybe would withstand the concerns they have probably with any heavy use of that loading dock. I know that might be contrary thinking, but it seems to me a good sturdy hardwood can have a benefit to vendor and to the public. Anyway, could you please reconsider that? I don't think the Board of Commissioners gave them a waiver of that. I think that it comes from your side, and if you could keep Cromer attractive, please think ahead. Is there any chance? Am I here too late?
You are. I mean, I'd be happy to address it. We did receive the waiver from the Board of Commissioners. We have preliminary land development plan, and we're in for final land development plan. We attended the caucus meeting the other night. In support of the request for the waiver, we provided photographs of the area, photographs of the property on the other side of Cromer Avenue. As you may know, Cromer Avenue is a very narrow, private street. It's not even a public street, and it's used by the township's public works vehicles, the snow plows and the trash trucks. And across the other side of Cromer are fire escapes, trash cans, and other things that are out there. We're actually moving the building a little bit further from where it is right now, a little bit further to the east, so that we can have room for a loading and unloading area for the truck. So there's just no opportunity for trees there. But for the site overall, which has some trees on it now, we're going from 12 trees to a total of 31 trees on a site that's about an acre. And so we think the landscape plan will look very good, but there's just no opportunity, and I think that's the reason that the Planning Commission recommended it, and the Board of Commissioners granted the waiver from that requirement on Cromer. We have frontage on 3 streets: Lancaster, Aberdeen, which are public streets, and then on Cromer. And if you could see the photographs of what's across the street on Cromer, I mean, it's a service road to the Township's public works facilities. That's what it is.
No, I can concur that Cromer is a utilitarian driveway. That's basically what its current purpose is. So, and you have received your waivers, so that's what it is. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, third item on the agenda is 1430 County Line Road in Villanova.
Good evening, I'm Tom Bentley. Representing Bentley Homes, which is also Boathouse Realty, which is the corporate entity for this community. We've been here before. I gave you my brief introduction. We've been building in your township for probably about 37 years, and we have a history of trying to save trees. We believe it's good business, and it's good for the resale of my homes. The more trees I have, the better, the older they look, the more valuable they are. I hope that you're familiar with some of our communities: Denby, Treyburn, Laurier. In all those, we've gone to great expense to try to save any trees we could, and we think they're all, probably some of them are actually overgrown at this point. But the characteristics of this property: this was owned by the Gibbs family. Was a family compound. It's known as Bray Bank is the name of the estate that was there, which has been torn down, and we are going to retain that name. But the two dominant features of this site, number one, it's been neglected, as I told you last time, for years and years and years. Number of diseased trees, a huge amount of Norway maples, and it's also R4 zoning. I had John Horwath present a very detailed tree evaluation, and you've seen it, and you've got the numbers in front of you. We are removing 217 trees. We are proposing that in terms of the Norway maples, that anything that's over 20 inches, we compensate for. Anything that's under 20 inches, we don't compensate for. There's 78 that are under 20 inches. As you know, they're invasive species. They're really not a good tree for a healthy urban forest. There's 22 that are greater than 20 inches, and we are calculating them in our numbers. There are also 5 heritage trees on the property. Of those 5, I'm pretty familiar with every one of them. I spent a lot of time out there with John and with Joe Arsati, who's here tonight as our landscape architect. There's only one is anyway structurally sound, and it happens to be in a place that there's retaining walls, there's a house, and it's just, I mean, I would love to save it, but it's just, in R4 zoning, it's just almost impossible to have any kind of area. One of the things we will say is that, you know, this is the minimum that we'll do. We'll do more when we actually build the property. If I'm building a house and I can flip a house and save a tree and you know have it be a benefit and maybe move something here and there, we always do that, and it's something we've got a history of doing. And based on your ordinance with the number of trees we're removing and our formula for the Norway maples, it calls for 137 replacement trees. There's also a township requirement of 35 township required trees, which gives us a total of 172 proposed trees. And what I've done, this is the overall plan, but to see where the replacement trees and the required trees are, the orange dots are the required trees by the ordinance, and the blue trees are the replacement trees. And what we try to do is to place these in a way that you know, it would be healthy, and also to give some privacy between the houses, because it is R4 zoning. We've used a lot of evergreens. One of the things we've received a preliminary approval from the Planning Commission. One of the things the Planning Commission asked us to do during the process was to meet with the neighbors and try and make the neighbors happy. And we reduced the number of lots. We probably could have had 16 lots. We reduced it to 10. We had 7 or 8 meetings with the neighbors. They were concerned about noise from Lancaster, and especially how, you know, they said in the summer it's great because you can't see anything. In the winter it's an empty path. So what we've done is we've really put a lot of evergreens on the property. If you look at the legend, we've really gone with a lot of evergreen trees. We've tried to be sensitive to, you know, we got to serve ourselves, we got to serve the Shade Tree Commission and the neighbors and the Planning Commission and the supervisors. So we're trying to, you know, this I think has been a great effort. The Planning Commission was pretty happy with it. So I have my consultants here if you have any detailed questions, but that's my general presentation.
Okay, so my understanding is that for every 20-inch Norway maple that you would remove, you would plant 1 tree.
Yes.
Can you offer the sheet, I'm sorry, that where you have your actual, is that in your landscape plan, is where your formula is?
It's on both, actually. If you look on the right-hand side, there's a required and a proposed of each plan. It's right here. And the replacement trees are shown at the bottom, and along the top is the calculations for what is required and what is proposed, taking into effect some trees and some existing buffers that are we're going to preserve. Total's 172. I know it's a little confusing. It's a little confusing to me too, but it.
Page 21 of the report, Jim will give you a breakdown in terms of compulsory. Yeah.
And of course, this doesn't account for any of the landscaping. We haven't played any games with, you know, trees that we're going to put for our landscaping around our houses. We'll probably do another, you know, 150 bushes and shrubs and trees around, you know, around our houses. I guess the other dominant feature that most people will be aware of when they go by the site, because really what happens is, we build these properties and the people that buy my homes, they live in the site, but what happens to the township is people who drive by the site, they see what they see. One of the things we're going to do, there's an old stone wall that runs along Lancaster. We're going to preserve that stone wall, and we're going to build a berm behind it, and we're going to put some evergreens on top of that, and we're going to clean it up a lot more than it is right now. And I'm hopeful that for all of at least my section of County Line Road, we're really going to cut down a lot of the noise between the berm and the evergreen. And a lot of the neighbors wanted us to preserve that wall that runs along. It's probably been there for 100 years, I would guess.
In your tree replacement formula, you just mentioned you were going to be planting more ornamentals than what you're suggesting here, as around the houses.
Yes.
For the replacement trees overall, have you maximized your large canopy trees? I see some dogwoods and birches and things of that nature. Is there an opportunity to?
Yes. There's these dark green areas right here are large canopy areas that we think we can preserve. And there is a couple trees along the front here that we're going to do our best to preserve. It really depends on, what our final, approval is and how the house we've made it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, because the neighbors didn't want us to have any of the driveways coming directly into their driveways. They didn't want the headlights coming up their driveway. So we've been trying to wiggle and squeeze and see what we can do. I think there's a couple of trees right in front of the old mansion here that if maybe we flip the houses and we're not in front of another driveway, there's a nice tree here that's I think it's a sycamore. It's a very nice tree that we're going to try and preserve, but we really have to get in there before we can see whether we can do it or not. We can, I save every tree I can save. I mean, I do, but I don't want to say I can save a canopy tree and then get in there and kill it, and then everybody thinks I'm a tree killer when I'm really a tree saver.
Yeah, but also in your replanting plan, have you maximized your replanting to be large canopies?
I don't know if I understand your question.
Yeah, when I'm looking at your compensatory replanting, I see some dogwoods and some birches are being proposed to come back as part of your replacement formula. And you just mentioned shortly ago that you were still anticipating more ornamentals.
No, there would be more plants around the houses themselves. I'm not a big ornamental guy. I mean, I like to see bigger trees in front of my houses. But you have to mix a few ornamentals in so you have the spring color. But around the houses themselves would probably be a mixture of just a foundation planting of maybe a couple evergreens, maybe one ornamental, a number of bushes. I mean, it would be something along those lines.
But you indicate 137 replacement, trees, and 35 township required, which is a total of 172 new trees,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And I think the question is the breakdown of the 137 or 172, how many of those are large canopy trees? Or would you propose or in that schedule?
I'm Joe Orsatti, landscape architect. If you look at the plan, I'm trying to answer your question from a distance first. What we've tried to do is to use the large canopy trees where we have ample space for them, like along the driveways, around the cul-de-sac, I should say, along the street tree. There are a few more scattered throughout, and I believe if you look at the plant list, there are, if you know your trees, there's approximately, I say, 20 or 30 canopy trees on the site, some of which are replacements, some are township required. I don't think Tom would object to adding a few more, but if you can see the tightness of the site, if we started putting trees right between the houses, in years we're going to have some problems. What we've tried to do is to be respectful of the buffering required between the tight homes for screening purposes. So to answer your question, I would say there's approximately 30 canopy trees. And I'm sure that Tom wouldn't object to a few more, but you can see the tightness in the site and the space that we need.
Okay, that was my basic question, was that you maximized your...
If I could just make one more comment. I don't know if you've noticed this with new construction, but a lot of times there's canopy trees that are planted right next to pine trees. Well, the pine trees lose out. I'm a big pine tree guy. I love pines. They're big, they're green, they give an instant impact, they give protection in the wintertime. They take a site that, by nature, new construction kind of destroys a little the environment, and then we try to rebuild it. But the evergreens give, a sense of place and a sense of mass in the wintertime that you won't get out of a canopy tree ever. So canopy trees are great. I mean, I love to put them in, but I can't put them near a pine. So if you look at all these areas where I had Joe...
You aren't calling for any pines in your plan, right?
I mean, evergreens. I'm sorry. I'm a builder. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Evergreens, these, we've tried to put them between the houses to give some privacy. We do this with all of our communities. We found that it goes a long ways. We're disturbing the environment. I'm trying to get the best and quickest effect from landscaping that I can. I also try and make my houses look a little bit older so they don't look brand new. We try not to use vinyl siding. We've made a lot of pledges here. I mean, we could have built this a lot less expensively than we're doing right now. We weren't even going to put in a cul-de-sac. We were just going to have 15 driveways, which your ordinance actually allowed. And we're trying to do the right thing. But, as far as the canopy trees go, I know they're the right thing, but they fight a mission that I'm on, is to provide privacy and street buffering. One of the other things I was surprised at when we started going through this process is how many trees that we used to buy from nurseries are no longer healthy. And we went through a pretty exhaustive study with John about, what evergreen trees we could use and some of them are just now dying quickly. So what we try to do is pick out species that were sturdy and healthy, that would hold up, because a lot of the new trees that are being planted today, even on other communities of mine, are just not going to be around in 5-10 years, because they have some kind of special fungus or root rot or something.
Okay, I guess the question at mind is your replacement formula. At 20 inches, the ordinance does suggest more than one tree replacement, whether it's a Norway maple or not. Perhaps you or your consultant could address why you've chosen the 20-inch range as a one tree.
Howard, to answer your question, obviously, we've discussed before about the invasive species. And there's been some studies done in the last year from Cornell stating that trees from 3 inches to 20 inches can produce up to 40,000 seeds annually in a 1 acre plot. So what I did is I looked at the actual species, and we had a total of 102 Norway maples, which 78 of them are actually underneath 20 inches in DBH. So I discredited them from the actual inventory, and anything over 20 inches I counted. Even though it's an invasive species, I still wanted to give it at least a 1 tree factor in a compensatory replacement, which I felt was very fair just because of the invasiveness.
Did you apply the formula to see what it would be if you just treated the Norway maples as trees?
I did not. And the reason being, obviously, as an urban forester, we're trying to eradicate Norway maples, out of our plant palettes throughout, the whole eastern seaboard. So, it's very important to me, obviously, because of the damage that they create and their shade tolerance. And if you, visit the site frequently, you'll see that, and they're all within, a 15-foot swath. You have 3 to 6 trees per 15 feet, which is a lot.
John, what's the count above 6 inches? You said they were between 3 inches and,
20 inches.
is there a number of 6 inches and above that you have?
Yeah.
Like,
It would be, it's broken down for you on page 7 of the report. We have a total of 16 trees, 6 inches, and they're the Norway maples.
Was 16 greater than 6?
Correct. No, at 6 inches. At 6 inches. 16 at 6 inches.
I would recommend that you come back with a count of what your compensatory planting would require if you were not making an exception.
I can figure that out for you right now very quickly. It would be 78 more trees. Because there's 78 trees under 20 inches, so it'd be 78 trees to be replanted. There's a total of 78 that are under 20 inches. So it'd be underneath the 1 tree per under 23 inches, so it's 78 more trees. No, there isn't nothing to be. Yeah, they're healthy. That's probably it.
Would there be some willingness on the developer's part to do some negotiation regarding the exception we would be making?
I'll ask him. He says okay.
Now, we understand the the biology, if you want to call it that, of the Norway maple and how invasive it is and when it is at its worst. So we understand the logic that you're presenting here.
I wish I could take you for a site walk because, I mean, if you looked at the junk that's on the property, I mean, it's in terrible condition. And the Norways they're growing like this. They may be healthy, but it looks like wheat growing in the field. I mean, they're not upright. The only thing I say is, you know, I've done so many developments that are tight, and we put so many trees on them. At some point, you know, people start cutting the trees down. So, and I don't want to overcrowd my evergreens. That's the only thing. So, I mean, if you can see some places where you might want a couple of, you know, shade trees, I mean, we could add them. Maybe we could find a few existing trees that we could, you know, pledge to save, or maybe we could do the engineering right now. I don't like to design too many houses or do too much engineering until I get my final approval. But there is one, you know, really nice sycamore in the front of the property that would definitely be worth saving. We think we can save it. I mean, I could offer that as a negotiation. I could do the work on that and see if we could save a couple more big shade trees along the road. Because really what people are going to see, you're never going to walk into this property. It's going to be people that are living here. What people are going to see is the people who are driving down County Line Road and the people who are driving down Lancaster. And so, you know, we always like to have our communities look as nice as they can from the road, because that's our reputation. 99% of the people see my communities from the road. 1% of the, not even 1%, I mean, a half of 1% see the people, see them from the inside. So, you know, maybe we could go back, look at some of there's a lot of pretty large oaks along the street there, see if we can really detail where the house, the architecture would be, where the garages would be, come back with maybe a few more, you know, large existing canopy trees that we would try and save. And can I give you some more evergreens? Or, I mean, what do you want?
Howard, you said negotiating. What kind of number are you
Yeah. I'm not looking at any particular number. I just would like to understand if there's some willingness to try to reduce the replacement, or not reduce the replacement, but to reduce the impact on the replacement formula that these Norways are creating.
You know, you also want to think about the park that's very in close proximity to the property that we're talking about. And I, you know, provided some recommendations on reviewing what they're able to do. I mean, it's very important that we try to at least eradicate the smaller trees, 20 below.
Right.
And if, you know, if they were red maples or, you know, swamp white oaks, we wouldn't be having this conversation. On my.
Well, I don't know if I'm negotiating against myself or not here, but what I heard you say is you want us to come up with something that's a little bit better, and maybe some more shade trees.
Yeah, I just would like to see that you're maximizing the canopy trees as best as you possibly can. I mean, you're saying maybe I can do this and maybe I can do that, and I would like to see you review that one more time. Again, I understand the biology of the Norway maple, and in fact, we are considering revising our ordinance to give that relief. But right now, the ordinance does not suggest that.
I understand that.
So, in the meantime, if there was any room to move here, we would be most appreciative.
Yeah, we thought we were being really nice doing the 20 inches, but we'll look at it and we'll come back with something better. We got time. I mean, if that's acceptable to you.
And did I say here one of the things you'd be considering is keeping some of the existing large trees? Is that when you were?
Yeah, right. This is the problem. R4 zoning. It's very tight. I mean, in front of each one of these houses, I got a water line, I got a driveway, I got a sewer line, I got an electric line, I got a gas line. So I've got like 80 feet, and I got to build a house, and I got to have it look good for the neighbors, and they told me where they want the driveway. Okay, so all along the front here, you know, we're compromised. So there's a couple of trees along the front here that, you know, are nice trees, and I think I can save them if I can, you know, kind of wiggle on site, which is what I always do. I always do that. If you want something on paper, we can go back and see if we can, you know, maybe talk to the neighbors about moving the driveway and tell them why we're moving it, and maybe we can. There's a number of, I mean, if you drive down here, there's a number of mature oaks right down this row that are probably the best trees on the whole site. But we think that, you know, with everything we're doing, we're going to lose most of them. But I would say that was probably the best thing I could offer, is to go back and see how many of those, you know, we could save. Obviously, if we save those, we're probably going to have to take one of the township required trees and put it someplace else. But I don't think anybody will bother with that. And there might be a few places where I could, you know, stick a shade tree that's not going to impact my, you know, my precious evergreens. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, and I'd be very interested in having some of the existing trees saved. That would be great. Now, with that does mean tree protection then, and not digging right next to the roots, right next to the trunk, and also it, as you said, complicates it. But that would help the site a great deal.
Well, let's take this one step further. I've heard a lot of talk about drip line. I've had a lot of success in the past when I saved a tree and I had a driveway going over it, or I had a trench going by it, you know, cutting the roots clean, you know, treating it like an operation instead of like a tear-off amputation. I mean, cutting it with a nice sharp blade. I've built houses right next to big trees and cut the roots trim and kept them well watered and had new root growth come out and had the trees live. If I've got to stay,
and were they still living 12 years later?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
I did it in my own house, yes.
Good.
And it was a beech tree that had, you know, the surface roots going right out. So if I got to stay out of the drip line, this is the best I can do. If I can go into the drip line and try and save a couple of these trees, you know, that's the problem, is the drip line. I mean, it's like a precious thing. But, you know, if you can save a tree that's 50 years old, and maybe you cut some of the drip line and you cut it clean and you do a good job, you know, the tree might live. Not, you know, it's not. But to stay out of the drip line along County Line Road, it would be absolutely impossible to do that. And that's why we didn't show them, and that's why when I say I would save whatever I could try to save, and I would cut it clean, and I would, you know, but I would disturb some roots. I mean, I would have to, because, you know, some of the canopies are, you know, 30 feet, 40 feet across. That's my whole lot. Or I could do an elevated driveway. Maybe I could. So.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear you have some time. So we would like to see what you propose could be improved a tad.
Could we hear a number from you? I mean, so we thought we were being very generous with, you know, I didn't think we were going to, based on other things I've heard in the records, that, you know, a lot of people didn't have to replace Norways. We thought we were being nice to do the over 20. You know, there's 78 that you're talking about. I think that's not reasonable. So, I mean, if I could, you know, save a few more canopy trees and add a few more canopy trees, are you guys going to be happy, or am I just negotiating against myself?
You know, I think, again, if you could save a few, add a few, we would understand. I think that's what we're asking for.
Okay, great.
Tom, just on your plan here, are all of your driveways, is this a fixed plan, or is this just like a beginning plan as far as your driveway cuts and everything?
The driveways are kind of fixed, but the houses can change.
I mean, there's no chance of radiating any of these driveways, like from 5 and 4, to come off the back of the house to go into that common drive, or from 1 and 2 to go into the cul-de-sac to try to save some trees out on the street?
No, we've been through the ringer with, I mean, I had the township on one side and neighbors on the other, and I think we're there. I think the tree that I really want to save the most, and I think I'm going to save it, is right where this driveway is right here. Is that about where it is? Okay, we've talked about this tree. We want to save this tree. We'll try and move the driveway over. We'll see if maybe we can create an easement for the sewer lines to come around, or maybe on another side or something. And it's already had some damage just from being so close to the existing driveway. But maybe the fact that it was next to the existing driveway, maybe the roots are, fending themselves out okay because we removed the driveway. But I would say if you drive by the site and you look at that tree, that's probably one of the prettiest trees on the whole site. So we'll look at that one, and there might be a couple others where there's no driveways in front of Lot 2 and Lot 3, and then maybe we can find a couple areas where there aren't, pine trees to add a couple canopies. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, we have 2 hazardous tree reports. 43-inch sugar maple at 266 Beechwood Drive. And the second is 208 Bloomingdale Avenue, which was supposedly a heritage tree, and we have representation here tonight that suggests that was not a heritage tree, that it was a 30-inch tree, had been documented in 2008. It would be difficult to imagine an evergreen growing 6 inches in 4 years at that size. So our heritage tree
Thank you. Jim Schneller. I just happened to be walking past the location when there was still about a 15-foot section of the trunk. And I can vouch for the fact that this was arguably a 36-inch tree, because at the base of it, there's no argument. Now, I couldn't stand next to it unless I lied down on the ground. However, this tree may be on your plans from the, there was a proposal that still has approval. I mean, it's only 2 or 3 or 4 years old for the, this lot and the lot at 212. If you could kindly check those plans, there may be documentation that's supportive of a claim for heritage. Now, it was tremendously sloppy of me to not call permits that night. It was only 2 days ago. But I was shocked at the fact that it had been touched where it was part of a plan that you approved, and I don't think you had necessarily given approval for that to be removed. Clearly, I don't think that approval was there. So you have a twofold violation here of a plan that's arguably, because my appeals about the location, which are half of them, were ultimately turned down by the Supreme Court of the U.S. And there are appeals pending. So your plan stands as what's currently a standing approval. And I don't think that supports tampering with the location at all, certainly not without an approach to community development for permission. I understand it may not be a heritage, so that's part of your consideration.
Yeah, we have a tree report here suggesting and showing pictures of significant decay within the tree. And it was therefore considered hazardous. We've got, wood-eating ants, et cetera, crawling through it. It's okay.
I'm sorry you don't have it beforehand, but it was all very sudden. Don Eckert, 208 Bloomingdale Avenue. I had a tree cut down in front of our property. There was a complaint made that it was a heritage tree and so on. The tree in question is here, in front of the property. It clearly states it's a 30-inch pine tree. I circled it in red for you just so you could see it. This tree, the cutting of the tree, anything to do with the tree has nothing to do whatsoever with the project that is proposed next door to us. This is simply a decision that we made to cut the tree down. The project next door is still up in the air, as the previous speaker suggests. I have two things I'd like to raise related. The first is the process. I would like to know the basis of the complaint. Now, Mr. Schneller says he walked by and saw the tree. Is Mr. Schneller a certified arborist?
No, I simply reported as a citizen. There's a citizen complaint line.
Were you on my property? Did you measure the tree?
That's another reason I didn't.
Is Mr. Schneller a land surveyor, a professional engineer, sworn before the bar as an officer of the court? Does Mr. Schneller have any credentials whatsoever to stand in the street and point at a tree and say how big it is?
Yes, the powers of estimation of the human.
Okay.
And I have reported to others, just for argument, I've reported to others that just nicely.
I have a landscaping plan that's 3.5 years old from Edward B. Walsh and Associates, civil engineers and surveyors, which says that the tree was a 30-inch pine tree. So my first issue is this is an anonymous charge against us. No one spoke to me about it. The second issue is the tree itself. This is a picture of it. It stands, as the plans show, very close to the house. This is a very old white pine tree, very close to our house. As you know, white pine root systems are also close to the surface. I live in a wet lot. All these things together with the stupendous height of the tree produces, in our mind, a threat of catastrophic failure of the tree. When the wind blows, I can feel it under my feet.
Okay, we have a report from the arborist stating that it was a hazardous tree. If there is only one tree from the property being taken down, that's
it.
not a.
There's no construction.
Yeah, so if I think I may be able to just sum this up if you'll let me.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. We have a report that it was a hazardous tree with one tree on the property, and the property is not part of the plan that we discussed. One tree that's not heritage does not have to come to the commission. The plan from 2008 shows it as and it was a plan done by the neighboring property. It was not done by the property in question, listed as a 30-inch pine, and I think it's the agreement of all of us that that the tree would not have grown that much, would not have put on 6 inches of caliper diameter in less than 4 years' time. So there isn't, it is allowed in this township for someone to report a tree that has come down that they're concerned about. So to me, that isn't an issue, but to me, we've now reviewed it, and it's acceptable to have been cut down. You were within your legal rights to do so. So that seems to me the case.
Okay, but do you understand my annoyance?
We understand.
That we've nursed this tree for 25 years, and it was cut down not because it was diseased. I want to be clear about that. We cut it down because we felt it was a danger to our neighbors. If this tree fell across Bloomingdale Avenue, it not only would have crushed any car or person walking by, but it would have crushed the houses across the street. If it had blown the other side, it would have crushed the house immediately adjacent to us or crushed ours. And this is not cut down willy-nilly. We
No,
did this.
there is a statement from the arborist so that it was a hazardous tree, which covers what you were just saying as your concern. So my feeling is that we're set. There's no problem.
Yeah, no, thank you for staying and defending your issue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other business before? Okey-doke. Thank you.